Thank you so much for joining us at our event today. We're really excited to see those of you in the room. Those of you in the room might have spotted that we have a couple of cameras around. Don't worry, you're not being put on candid camera, but we are live streaming this event as well so that we can reach as a wider audience as possible. So if you are joining us at home or from the comfort of somewhere else, massive welcome to you as well, and thank you for joining us online. There'll be opportunities for everyone in the room and everyone online to get involved with some of the activities that we're doing today. So, as I said, thank you so much for joining us today. We are Generation, or I'm here representing Generation. You're going to hear a lot more about who Generation are and what we do a little bit later on today. But my name's Stephanie. You might have seen my name on emails or some of the promotion that we've done for the event. And I'm the Admissions Director at Generation UK and Ireland. We are joined today by our lovely friends at Not Going to Uni, who are the people running around in black or hiding behind the little cubby in the corner over there. They are joining us to live stream the event today and just supporting us as well. And as you can see on here, Not Going to Uni is an amazing resource for people who, as the name might suggest, haven't been to university, aren't planning to go to university, didn't get the chance to go, all of that good stuff. So an amazing resource to check out at a later date as well. So I want to wake everyone up because it's afternoon. You might be in that slump already. I want to get you involved very quickly. So what I'd like you to do if you are in the room and if you are at home watching online is grab your phone. You don't often get to take your phone out on an event, so make the most of it. Go to mentimeter.com, and when you're prompted, you can type in the number that is on the screen at the moment. And you will see a question on your screen once you've done that. How many people in the Scottish tech industry identify as women by percentage? So you'll have a multiple choice question there. Is it 10%, 20%, 30%, or 40%? What percentage of people in the Scottish tech industry are women? And we'll see what you all think. Okay, so we have a few at 10%. We're waiting for a few more people to vote. Lots at 30%. No one's optimistic enough to go for 40%. Oh, yes, of course. So the code is just at the top of the screen. So no one's optimistic. I'm sure our speakers at the back aren't surprised that no one's quite optimistic enough to go for 40%. We never know. Right, another few seconds to vote on that. Okay. Oh, okay, this has changed quite a lot now, actually. It's quite fun watching it change in real time. Okay. All right, I'm going to pause it there. And the correct answer, oh, never mind, it won't show us. The correct answer is 20%. So 20% of women, and well done to the 12 of you there who got that right, and that is the majority of people who voted, which is amazing. 20% of women in the Scottish, or people within the Scottish tech industry are women, identify as women. Now, we don't think that's good enough. We know that's not good enough, and we know we can do better than that. And that is one of the reasons, or the main reason, that we as a charity, as a non-profit organisation looking to widen access opportunities into tech, are doing events like these, trying to find people like all of you, trying to talk to you, trying to help you learn more about the tech industry. And we hope that you leave today, whether you're in the room or watching online, leave today feeling a bit more enthused, a bit more inspired, a bit more informed about the tech industry and what your first steps into a career in tech could look like. Okay, so with that in mind, staying on Mentimeter for just a second, if you refresh the page on your phone, we have our last question. So what first sparked your interest in a possible tech career? And I'd like you to write in a word or a couple of words that come to mind. What got you out of bed today, or what made you log on online to watch the event today? What sparked that interest? And our speakers can definitely join in on this as well. I'm intrigued to see your answers too. Okay, so the bigger the word, the more people are saying it. So lots of opportunities coming in. Innovative, I love that. Money, 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 we like that. That's okay. That's okay. We can talk about money as women. That's all right. Curiosity, I love that. Challenging. I don't want to engineer. Problem solving, yeah, lots about the skills involved. So problem solving, flexibility, impact, love that, challenging, security. But it's looking like flexibility, money, opportunities, and innovation are coming out most strongly. And I think that's not a huge surprise to me. So tech is really attractive to lots of people for lots of reasons, but definitely opportunities and the security, the long-term security of those opportunities is a really big draw for people. The fact that it can be a lucrative career as well in terms of money, that's not like a dirty word here at all, that's okay. And then the flexibility as well. So it's seen as a modern career, it's something that is kind of fit for 2023. It's not stuck in the dark ages in terms of how you work or where you can work. All right, that's brilliant. Oh my goodness, we're up to 89 responses now. All right, lovely. Thank you so much for joining in with that. Oops. Okay. All right, so moving on to what can you expect? That's not in full screen, is it? Hang on a second. So we always have the fun bit on a tech event when the tech doesn't work how you want it to work. Okay, let's try again. All right, here we go. So what can you expect from this afternoon? So whether you're in the room or you're watching online, there's a few things that you can expect from today. So you'll be hearing a bit more about different careers in the tech industry. Tech is a huge industry. It's a very big world, and there's loads of different routes and pathways and avenues that you can go down within that world. You'll hear a bit from me about the different areas of tech. You'll also hear from our speakers as to all the different areas of tech they're currently working in, and hopefully you'll come away with a sense of the diversity of opportunity within the industry. You'll also hear from me a bit more about skills boot camps. So Generation is a non-profit organisation that runs skills boot camps as a way to get into the tech industry, an alternative way to get into the tech industry. So you'll hear more about that and hopefully go away feeling educated about a different route that you might not have thought about before. You will have the opportunity to hear from and talk to a panel of wonderful women, all currently working in tech, who have joined us today from Microsoft and the Forest and Land Registry in Scotland to talk to us about their journeys, about their careers to date, and what excites them about tech and why they think you should be excited about tech as well. You'll have an opportunity to hear about how to apply to a Generation Bootcamp, should you wish to, and have your CV reviewed if you brought that with you. Doesn't matter if you haven't, that's absolutely fine. You will still hear some really fantastic guidance and advice on how to create a standout CV. And hopefully you'll also make the most of being in a room with other people who are like-minded, other women who are like-minded, who have similar interests to you. It's a really nice opportunity to have a chat with each other, maybe make a couple of new allies in your network, create a professional network for yourself today, and also speak to myself and my colleague Ashley on the front desk there about your individual circumstances if you want personalised advice about what your next steps could be and what they could look like. Okay, so who are Generation? I promise you a bit more information about who on earth we are. So we are a global non-profit. We're currently in 17 countries, 288 cities and counting. I'm sure that number is a bit higher by this point. We were set up in the US a few years ago, and we've been in the UK and Ireland since about 2019. Globally, over 70,000 people have so far completed the Generation programme, and we're really proud of this. This is growing all the time. We're hoping to support another 1,500 or so people in the UK and Ireland this year, and that number will obviously look a lot larger globally. And this is the key thing. So we are a training provider in the sense that we put on skills boot camps, we enroll people onto skills boot camps, we teach you everything you need to know about a particular industry or a particular career, but we don't stop there. So what makes us a little bit different to maybe a normal training provider is that we then work with employers to try and get you placed into careers. So we will liaise with employers, we will connect with them, we'll connect you with employers that have vacancies and who are interested and keen in hiring Generation graduates. And we're very lucky that you'll get to hear from Generation graduate a little bit later on today. And this is a stat that we're very proud of. So last year, in 2022, everyone who went through our boot camps last year, 75% of them are now in new careers, so in careers that they didn't think were possible. These are people who had no experience in tech before they did a boot camp, generally are unemployed. About 85 to 90% of the people we work with are unemployed, and they're now in fantastic, long-term, meaningful careers that are exciting to them and have changed their lives. And then my absolute favourite statistic is this one. So we think that a new career or a different career is not just life-changing for the person whose career it is, but it can be life-changing for their family and future generations of their family as well. So I said before that around 85% of people who come onto a Generation Bootcamp are unemployed. That typically means that their income is at zero. Even for those who are working, their income obviously is generally not where they'd like it to be. And so after a Generation Bootcamp, once they're working, on average we see a 3 to 4 times increase in income, which, as I said, I think is not just life-changing for the person involved, but it can be life-changing for the people around them as well. So we don't just do tech bootcamps, but today I'm going to focus on tech bootcamps because you've all signed up to a Women in Tech event, and that is what you're obviously very clearly interested in. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit about which bootcamps we run, and I've split them out into kind of characteristics and what you might be interested in, because as I said before, tech is a really big world, and it can be difficult to find your niche within it or find your route within it, and so this is one way of doing that. So if you are someone who is very methodical, you've got an eye for detail, you like diving into the detail, you could be a future data analyst, and that is one of the courses that we run. We will talk about these programs a little bit more later. If you're great with people, if you've got great people skills, great communication skills, and you like fixing things, if you're someone that family and friends will go to say, oh my goodness, right, my tech's broken, you're the guru around here, you're the IT tech whiz, can you help me with this? It could be that IT support is a great option for you. If you're excited by learning new technologies and learning to code, if you like to be on the cutting edge of things, and you also want to really dive into the coding side of tech, or what we would call the very techie side of tech, then data engineering might be the pathway for you. And then lastly, we have 2 cloud programs, so Amazon and Google Cloud. If you're always trying to keep up with the latest tools, if you like being on that cutting edge, you like an area of tech that is forever evolving, forever changing, and you like working as part of a team and collaborating and problem solving together, then a cloud pathway might be the one for you. Now, we run these programs on a rolling basis in all of the areas that we work in across Scotland, England, and Ireland. The ones that are upcoming this year, so for the rest of 2022, are IT support and Amazon Cloud. So next year, we'll be running more programs and they'll be on a rolling basis, but just to highlight the ones that are currently open for applications and launching in the next few months are these 2, so IT support and Amazon Cloud. And I want to spotlight a bit what happens after you do a bootcamp. So you might be sat there thinking, okay, cool, bootcamp sounds good, I kind of get the idea, I get the theory here, okay, you're going to connect us with employers, but who are these employers? Oh, am I going to have heard of them? Is it, are they legit? Are they real? Is this suspect? And so I've put together this slide to show you just a really small range of the types of organisations and employers that we work with at Generation across the UK and Ireland. So this slide will hopefully include some household names that you're very familiar with. So the likes of, well, it depends on the household, but if you're my household, you're definitely familiar with things like Just Eat. And I don't know if Netflix is up there, but certainly things like Depop and River Island, that'll be my household. But there might be some names up there that are less familiar to you, that might be slightly smaller or medium-sized businesses or just things that you haven't heard of. The main thing, though, that I want you to take away from this slide is that these are where our tech graduates are working, our tech bootcamp graduates. Not all of these companies, in fact, not all by a long way, are tech companies, or they're not known for being a tech company. I don't think of Just Eat or River Island as being a tech company. But the idea here is that as a person who works in tech, there are so many opportunities open to you in a wide variety of different industries. You don't just have to work in a tech company as a tech person. You can pursue other interests or other passions that you might have and combine them with your interest and skills in tech to work for a company or an organization that really resonates with you, kind of aligns with your values and your interests. So that's the kind of opportunity, the diversity of opportunity that you have available to you in tech. You don't just have to be working for a coding company or a well-known tech company. You can work for a whole range of different employers. And then I wanted to tell you a bit about what a bootcamp feels like, because if you haven't heard of it before, you haven't thought about it before, it's a bit alien. It's not a style of learning that you might be used to. So all of our bootcamps are online. They take place over Zoom. You are in a classroom of no more than sort of 25 people, And these people are going to become your first professional network. What's really lovely about the way we do boot camps at Generation is that it's not just a classroom or where you are looking at the instructor, but you can't see anyone else in the class. It's not like traditional distance learning where you might feel isolated and lonely learning at home. You can see everyone has camera on, everyone's smiling. I'm sure they're not always smiling 24/7, but they're certainly smiling for the photo. It becomes a community, and we put a lot of care and a lot of warmth and due diligence into how we build our classrooms of people, making sure it's a nice balanced classrooms of lots of different personalities who are going to gel with each other. And as I said before, you become each other's first professional network you can lean on and go to for advice and support if you need to. I'm going to tell you more in a minute about how the program is built and what you actually learn on the program. But in terms of who you've got supporting you while you're doing this style of learning, you have your instructor, who is the expert in your field that you're learning about. And then you also have your mentor, who is there for all of the kind of non-academic support that you might need. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the kind of pastoral support that we can provide. So in terms of what you'll learn, it's split into 3 areas at Generation. So the first one, as you might expect, it's the technical skills. We're going to teach you everything you need to know in order to do the job that you want to progress to effectively, to be a great colleague for your future employer. But that we're not going to stop there, because we think, okay, that's great, they have some tech skills. Is that going to set them up for success in the workplace? Possibly not. So we move on to things like Generation mindsets. So we call this mindsets because it's all about how you train your mind to think in a different way. So one of the biggest ones we talk about is growth mindset, which is simply how do you react when you get knocked down? How can you demonstrate resilience and perseverance, and can you keep going when things get tough? So we kind of develop all of those sorts of skills and qualities that you already have within you. We just help you bring them out a little bit more. And then we also look at behavioural skills. So sometimes people would call these soft skills. I don't love that phrase. I think that kind of diminishes how important they are. So we tend to call them behavioural skills instead. So these are the things that, in a really kind of fundamental way, are going to make people want to work with you. You can have all the technical skills in the world, but if you're not fantastic at some of these areas, these behavioural skills, you might not get your foot through the door. You might not get hired still, because employers are looking for kind of well-rounded people who can do a few different things or lots of different things. So we put lots of emphasis on this as well. In addition to this, towards the end of your program and for up to 6 months after the program, we support you with employment and employability advice and guidance, and you work with an employment coach who gets to know you really well and is going to help you find that all-important first job in the industry. Okay, so coming back to how you're going to be supported. So we have professional mentors who are employed by Generation to work with each class. You'll have a dedicated mentor for your class who you'll meet with on a one-to-one basis, as well as potentially in groups if that's something you'd like to do. And they're there to help you goal set, to keep you motivated. We know that life happens sometimes. You know, you can't always plan for what happens in life. Something upsetting might happen during your program, or something that causes some upheaval might happen, and you're going to need some extra support, and that's what the mentors are there for. They're going to do everything in their power to support you so that you can thrive and complete the program. And what this looks like in practice, I've split across 3 areas here. So we have pre-programs. This is before you even enroll onto the bootcamp program. During the application process, you'll be meeting with a mentor who's going to chat to you about what your support needs might be. They're going to learn a bit more about who you are, what your life looks like, what your circumstances are, so that they can support you to the best of their ability. And they'll also work with you to start setting some goals for what you want to get out of the bootcamp experience. Then during the program phase itself, you'll have those one-to-one meetings. You'll meet as frequently as you need to or you want to. And they're going to start helping you understand where you might want to go, what pathway you might want to take, and keep you accountable for those goals that you're going to set. And then lastly, in the placement phase, so that's up to 6 months after the program is the placement phase. They're going to help you with getting ready for interviews, supporting you with the job search, making sure your CV is all polished, and keeping you motivated, keeping you feeling resilient, and keeping you demonstrating perseverance during what can be, we all find job hunting tricky or challenging. We've all been there. So it's nice to have someone who's in your corner, kind of backing you during that process. And I'm going to spend just another minute or so just closing on who we're looking for our program. So we are looking for people who are aged over the age of 18. We are looking for people who, in general, are not in education, employment, or training. If you're working part-time, come and have a chat with us. We assess that on a case-by-case basis, just to make sure that it's something you can balance alongside the bootcamp program. You will need to have the right to work in the UK, either as a British passport holder or as a visa holder. You need to be available for the duration of the program. So most of our tech programs run between 9 and 12 weeks, depending on which one you pick. And you will need to be available for that. And then also ready in your mind to kind of step into a full-time job afterwards. Sometimes it could take a little while to get you placed. It can take a few months. Sometimes it can take just a matter of a few weeks. So you do need to kind of, in your mind, be ready to take that next step when it comes. And then this is a really, really important one. So this is maybe what makes us a little bit different. We're not looking for any previous qualifications or particular education, and we're not looking for professional experience. We have people who come onto boot camps who do have degrees, but on the whole, we are looking to support people who have faced some challenges or some barriers to employment, and often that can take the form of not having the opportunities to access loads and loads of education and qualifications, or not having had the chance to access lots of professional experience. So we are actively not looking for that. If you do have that, come and have a chat with us, and we will assess that on a case-by-case basis. But if you don't, this might be an interesting pathway for you. And then lastly, so if you're in the room today, but even if you're watching online, next steps, get in touch with us, have a chat with us if you're in the room today, talk to us more about who you are, what your circumstances are, what you might be looking for in terms of your next steps. If you're online, you can reach out to us online via the live stream or by email, that's absolutely fine. And then you can also use a great tool on our website called our eligibility checker. That's a hard one to say fast. Our eligibility checker, where you can put in some basic details about yourself, and it will just do a very quick double check against the criteria I've just told you about, and it will show you which programs are open and available in Scotland, and which ones you're eligible for. So it does all the legwork for you, it does all the hard work for you. So I'm going to close there for the moment, and leave you with that kind of set of information about generation. We're going to come back in a little bit later to talk about the different areas of tech and get you doing a couple of little activities from the comfort of your seat or from the comfort of home to help you understand a bit more about those different areas of tech. But in the meantime, I'm delighted to introduce our keynote speaker for the day. So I'm thrilled to introduce Karis Jamieson, who works at Microsoft, who is going to be talking to you about who she is, what her journey into tech has looked like, and why she thinks tech is super exciting.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. I do need to update that profile picture, don't I? It's taken like 8 years ago, and I'm being a big fat fake here with that picture, but, you know, filters and all that. I was just trying to be relevant. I'll put this down in a second, but there's just a couple of statements that I wanted to share with you before we get going. So we're here to talk about tech, and hopefully you'll take away some nuggets of information from the sessions today, and hopefully I'll give you a bit of inspiration, give you a bit of perspective on what my career's been like in tech and some of the trends that I have seen and I'm seeing moving forward. But there's a few statements that I want you to think about during the course of today as it relates to women in tech. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about these things? Just think about it in your head. 1 being not really thought about it, and 10 being, yep, I feel quite strongly about this. So the first statement is, women have unique strengths and perspectives that can enrich the field of technology and solve complex problems. So that's the first statement. The second statement is, women need to overcome the internal and external barriers that prevent them from pursuing their passion and potential in technology. That's the second statement. And the third statement is, women need to support each other and create a network of mentors, allies, and role models in technology. So keep those statements in your head. Think about that over the course of today, because these are kind of really important things to come back with. So I'm Karis Jamieson. If you're struggling with the pronunciation, I always do this when it's written down. It's Karis rhymes with Paris. Not really a very Scottish name, is it? It's actually Greek for grace. So I'm going to tell you a bit about my career, and then we're going to touch on a few topics that I think is important to give some sort of perspective. So I feel, again, I am an engineer in the sense that I studied an engineering degree. So I studied electronic and electrical engineering well over 20 years ago here in Scotland. I started my working career with IBM, if any of you are familiar with that company. And soon after starting with IBM, I was introduced to lots of other areas of tech. So I'm in the tech sector. To Jennifer's point, there's lots of other types of industries that have tech but aren't tech as a line of business. So I am in the tech industry, started at IBM as an engineer, but quite quickly got passionate about marketing. That came about just through working with customers and taking them to really cool briefing centres and seeing all the technology we were showcasing for them and like really doing demos and things. And I thought, wow, this is quite cool. You can show them how these tools can help them solve problems. So probably for most of my tech career, I've actually worked in marketing. So it gives you an idea, and it builds on what Jennifer said. You don't need to have a real deep technical skill to then navigate in different parts of the tech industry or in organisations, routes to other things that you might feel passionate about. So think about all the things that you're feeling sort of passionate about, and tech's a skill that you can build, but what are the other things that kind of get you going? So that's me, I'm a marketer, bit of a data geek as well, so I do love a good Excel spreadsheet. I love an Excel spreadsheet in my personal life, I love it at work, I love looking at data and analytics. Microsoft will get really cool tools with Power Automate, Power BI, love a good dashboard, so if you like data, you're a bit of a data geek, a lot of great opportunities there as well. And I also like, you can see here, flying the flag for women in tech. So I love to look at diversity in tech. We'll talk about a few more statistics, build on what Jennifer said as well. Most importantly, I'm a mum of two. Two lovely boys, Elliot, who's 6.5, and Owen, who's almost 3. I'm the wife to Will. I'm almost out for parole. We're almost married 16 years now. And I love friends and family. So again, that foundational layer is always going to be my priority. You know, those are the things that keep me grounded in life. Those are the network of people I can go to when times get tough. I love to travel. So I spent 8 years in Sydney, Australia. I just moved back at the start of the year to Scotland. So again, it was my tech job that took me to Australia back in 2015. Planned to go for 2 years. 8 years later, I was still there. So that was fascinating. It gave me another perspective in the world. So love to travel, love good food. I don't know if any of you know that gentleman down here on the right, Curtis Stone. I had the great opportunity to meet Curtis Stone, who's an amazing Australian chef who lives in the US, at an event, a tech event that I was at as well. Also love music, so if any of you remember Tea in the Park, you would find me there. Maybe you bumped into me for a few summers. I'd always be there with my welly boots on, singing and drinking beers. Like a bit of darts as well, so do like sport. My VIA Strengths, there's a cool tool that I'll give Jennifer the link to. It's called VIA, it's a free assessment. And every year I take a VIA Strengths assessment, and it ranks your sort of strength of character, different traits, asks you all these questions, and it'll give you your 20 strengths ranked. Now, it doesn't mean the bottom ones you're rubbish at, it just says what the top 5 are. So my 5, it gives you a little description of what each of these are. So mine's where, this was December of last year, I took this: judgment, kindness, love, humour and creativity. So VIA Strengths as the assessment tool. Now, this is important to me. I'll explain why that's important in a minute, but it kind of grounds you on what your values are. So when you're thinking about the words that you put on that word cloud there about why you were exploring a changing career or why you want to go into tech, don't get it mixed up with who you are as a person, because that's really important. So this is a lovely picture, right? This is like what would go on the gram. This is what would go on all the good stuff, right? And it looks like, oh my goodness, Caris has like got it sorted. She's an amazing career, right? This is lovely, all very Instagram worthy. But there's another side of the story as well, right? So I grew up in a council house in a small village called Kilbarkin. It's in Renfrewshire, not too far from here. I am the youngest of 4, so I've got 3 older brothers. I was the first in my family to go to university. It just wasn't a thing that anyone did. I'm not particularly close to any of my siblings. We got on okay, but we don't have a tight-knit group. I I'm very close to mum and dad, but my mum suffered from ill health all of her adult life. So she had rheumatoid arthritis and she was quite agoraphobic as well. She didn't really like to go out. So I was always there as a support mechanism for my mum. She sadly passed away after a short illness with lung cancer in 2009, so over 15 years ago. 15 years later, I'm still trying to unpack that as well. I struggled with infertility for 10 years of my life as well. Didn't think kids were on the cards for me, so I feel very blessed to have 2 boys. I also suffer from something called veophobia. If any of you know what that is, being diagnosed with that, it's a fear of driving, so driving here today was fun. And I'm also I've also suffered from high functioning anxiety. I've always been an anxious person, but as I got older, it's probably to do with not unpacking all these things. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because that is nice, but we're all dealing with other things in life, and those other things are important. And when we think about what's changed for women in tech, probably 5 years ago, I wouldn't have felt that I could come and tell you that story about the other part of my life because of the mix of people I was working with, both men and women. This isn't just a man statement, both men and women. I felt I had to cover and I had to show up a certain way, and it had to be all this for me to go on. But now this is actually part of my story, and it helps me be hopefully more relatable and real and kind of show up the way I want to show up and not always cover to be, oh yeah, I've got a university background, I've got this, I've got that, because that's not really what diversity is. It's not really picking up what's happening, it's just polarising. And the one thing I don't want to do as I go into the second half of my career is polarise. So as you guys start to embrace in tech, we all have a job here to push those boundaries and get the numbers that Jennifer talked about up. So why is that important in tech? Well, these are the changes in the last 20 years that I've seen. And we'll talk about a little bit of owning your own story and what that means in terms of traits. But the gender gap in STEM roles has persisted. Jennifer talked about it. The UK number isn't much better than the Scotland number in terms of women in tech. It's 23% of women are in tech now. But it's a lot better than it was 20 years ago, right? But it's still persisted. Only 5% of those women in the UK have leadership positions, right? So owning your own story is important. Hold that thought about owning your own story because you're going to see why in a minute. The demand for tech skills has increased. So again, Jennifer highlighted a lot of those areas, and we'll talk about some of those tech trends in the last 5 years to hopefully give you a little bit of an appetite for what things you could go and work in as well, that you could take those skills from the boot camp and do. The support for women in tech has increased, so things like Generation, the programmes that Generation are doing, there's a whole host of other programmes. So if there are ones that you're not familiar with, have a look around, come and ask myself and my colleagues at Microsoft, and we'll happily give you more information as well. More innovation and opportunities have been created by women in tech. So there's loads of things. The founder and CEO of Bumble, you know, the app for going and looking for online dating, was created by a woman. Women tend to think a little bit differently, and that's why we need diversity. We can't have people thinking the same. If you remember back, I might be going back too many years now, there was a mobile phone company in the 90s, Nokia. They kind of had the market stitched up, right? Their board was all Swedish men of a certain age, of the same nationality, and that was really their downfall. So always challenge diversity, because the more we can hear from other people's stories, the better we can think about problems. And then leadership traits that are desired are feminine. Now, just want to be really careful here, not female, feminine. This is non-gendered, right? So why is that important? I talked about owning your own story, the full story, not just the piece that's Instagram worthy. So there's a few studies that were done. One of the studies was done at the World Economic Forum, and 32,000 people were asked to rate 200 traits and whether they thought those traits. This is a bit of an eye chart, right? So you'll get a copy of these slides, right, Jennifer? Will they get, yes. You'll be able to look at these words a little bit more closely because it is a bit of an eye chart. So these 32,000 people were asked to rate these traits and whether they thought they were masculine. So again, non-gender, just do you feel that that's more of a masculine trait? Because we've all got masculine and feminine traits, right? So masculine, feminine, or neutral. And this is how it kind of came out with the words that are there. Then a separate 32,000 were asked to rate those same traits on what they wanted in terms of leadership, what they've seen in terms of leadership, success, happiness, and morality. And the ascendance of the traits is all feminine-related traits. So I talked earlier about covering, I talked about women in tech trying to fit into a man's world. Think about all those words, which ones exhibit traits that you feel are innate to you, that you have in your toolbox? And do you embrace those in everything that you do when it comes to a professional life? Or do you try and force fit yourself into a box that you think, oh, well, it's tech. You know, tech people must be all these words here, so I need to go and force myself into this box rather than go with the natural flow. So think about what your traits are, and if you have a lot of these feminine traits, be assured that's what this next generation of women in tech, that's how it's going to move further. So in maybe another 20 years' time, it won't be 23%, it will be 50%. And I would love that. I'd love to come back here in 20 years' time and see that. And just to kind of round out the point on, you know, this not being a gender thing, these top 10 here, which is on here, so 8 of the top 10 leadership, desired traits for leaders, 8 of them are feminine. My general manager down in Sydney, Australia, he was a man. He exhibited all of these feminine traits. He was just top. There's loads of examples of men who really embrace their feminine traits, and I'm sure you can think of them all in your personal lives as well. So super important not to shy away from that as a woman in tech and just a leader in your own life. So going back round to tech trends, right? So we've talked about owning your story. We've talked about what things have changed in the last 20 years in tech, some good, some not going as fast. We've talked about that importance of what organisations are really looking for in leaders, and what, not even organisations, what people in general, who do they want to work with, what type of people, but what's actually happening in trends. So here's the top 5 things that I think that's noteworthy. Jennifer talked about cloud. Cloud is now mainstream. Who remembers when you used to have a mobile phone and you had to get, oh, I need another memory card because I've got too many pictures and not got enough memory in my phone? We don't have that anymore because everything goes into the magical cloud. So that's more mainstream. Companies like Microsoft, AWS, Google, that is sort of bread and butter for our sort of organisations building the cloud, building data centres. The second one's one that probably has just completely taken off in 2023, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So I'm sure everyone here's had a play around with ChatGPT, controversial for anyone who's got kids at school and think, oh my goodness, they're going to use ChatGPT and they're going to get it to write their exams. Any new technology, we think about the internet, everyone was panicking about things. There's always going to be people that will use tools not for the right thing. Right? It's the same with tech, same with anything in life. People just generally don't do the right thing with whatever it is, whether it's tech or something else. So I kind of think we need to embrace this. And particularly as women, you know, what are the life hacks that we can use stuff like artificial intelligence for? And again, when I talked about, you know, women have been innovative and created amazing things in tech, a lot of them have created things to run their businesses because they're like, how could we use tech to do that better? So again, the mind of women, I think, can work really well in terms of just thinking about a problem differently. 5G and Internet of Things. Who here uses their phone to switch on their heating? Well, you probably don't switch on your heating because utilities are through the roof. No one told me that before I moved back from Sydney. It was so expensive in Scotland. I thought, oh, yeah, I lived in Sydney. It's going to be really cheap in Scotland. Whew, that was wrong. But yeah, we use the Internet of Things now to control things when we're remote from them. So again, lots of people doing a lot of work in tech to enable these technologies. The last 2 are ones that are really important to me, and I would say that if you're looking for an area to pursue in tech, these are ones that are going to really go off the charts in the next few years as well. Sustainability, right's always been around. It's, I mean, you'd have to be really living under a rock if you haven't seen the sort of impact that we're all putting pressure on our ecosystem. Sustainability in tech is really important, so thinking about how we become carbon neutral is super important for tech. Every customer we talk to is a tech company at Microsoft, and it could be any line of business. We always have a conversation with them about sustainability, and they say, Microsoft, help us to become sustainable. What do we do from a tech perspective to become sustainable? So that is an area that I think if you are passionate about that from a personal perspective, it has such a fundamental role in tech, and most companies are struggling with this. So that's an area that I would say, think about any passions that you might have for sustainability generally, and this could be a good one if you're also interested in tech. And the last one, accessibility. 1 in 5 people in the UK have a disability, and not all disabilities are visible. And I feel really bad because normally I would have my closed captions on up here, so it would be able, if you couldn't really hear me properly, you could maybe read the text. So there's lots of tools in tech for accessibility. And it's so important when we think about the range of disabilities that we have. As I say, not all are visible. How do we become more inclusive from a tech perspective to have a broader range of people who have different disabilities involved, because they have some amazing ideas as well. So how are we not getting more people involved? So that's another area that really has lots of potential from a tech perspective moving forward. So hopefully that's given you some idea on sort of tech trends. Now think beyond tech skills as well. There's a couple of things here just to, again, enhance that, as well as my tech skills, and Jennifer touched on it in terms of the other types of skills that you'll learn from the Generation boot camps. But there's a few things here. There's a Women Rising programme. This is a fee-based programme, so I wouldn't suggest you go and look at this just now, but this is quite life-changing. It's not particularly tech, but it helps you think about what your life vision may be and how you can really lean into, and when I say life vision, it's not a 5-year plan. I hate 5-year plans. I don't do 5-year plans. It's more about what's the things that I really enjoy? How can I feel like good in what I do? And that might be, I want to make time every week to sit and have a coffee by the beach, or something simple. How are you making time for you? Because again, as women, we tend to put ourselves down the bottom of the pecking order when it comes to looking after everybody else apart from ourselves. The coaching habit, this is a really good one for learning how to be curious. Curiosity, and again, Jennifer touched on this. Jennifer, you touched on a lot of things. This was amazing. Curiosity is such a great thing to have. And we always say, well, no question's a stupid question. It is true. The more you can think about asking questions, the more someone will say, oh, I never thought about that. And The Coaching Habit is a great book. This guy's great. It really makes you think about how you pause. I have to work on this all the time, how you pause and try and sort of listen versus just thinking about your next answer. You know, how do you really just think, well, what other questions can I ask to tease out some more information? And then this guy over here, Michael Gervais, he's brilliant. So he does a lot of work with the sports industry, and he talks about what businesses can learn about some of the skills that are applied to sort of psychology and sport. It's really worth a look at as well. So these are, again, I agree with Jennifer, it's not softer skills. These are things that I think as a female population we do really well. It's things that leaders are looking for. So my message to you is please embrace those. So just to conclude, this is kind of building your jigsaw. Hopefully I've given you some inspiration today on what's happened in tech, what the tech trends are, how you can embrace your feminine traits to build that jigsaw. So avoid covering. You know, I feel empowered now to be able to tell more of my authentic story than just the one that's the Instagram picture story. It's what makes you relatable. Spend time to create that life vision. Think about Stare at that blank piece of paper. Really, challenge yourself, make yourself feel uncomfortable about what that is, and talk to yourself about, pretend you're having a coffee conversation with yourself. I do this quite a lot now because someone gave me that tip. They said to me, well, what advice would you give to yourself if you were sitting across from yourself having a coffee conversation? Because we're all good at giving our friends advice or our family, but if we're sitting across from each other, would we take and receive that advice? So have a coffee conversation with yourself. Use that via strengths assessment, the free assessment, to really validate what your values are and you staying true to those. Think about your traits that you have as a leader. You've got lots. What are the ones that are innate to you and how can you use that on this journey you're about to pursue in tech? And stay curious. Be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. I've been here 20 years. I try to learn something new every week from someone, whatever it is, a conversation, anything, and I'm looking forward to learning from you guys today. And I'm just going to leave you with this. So a friend of mine, when I was moving back from Australia, it was a super, super tough decision. And I just couldn't, I spent probably so I wanted to come back to the UK for a number of years. But then when it came to it and I got offered a job here, I thought, I don't know if I can go. And I was so scared. And my friend had got told this when she left high school. And it just stuck with me for some reason. Mistakes we've made don't matter, just the chances that we've lost. Don't regret the bridges burned, just the ones you've never crossed. So maybe keep that in mind when you kind of feel I want to push myself a bit, but I don't know. It's always good to have some of that. Anyway, with that, hopefully I've not bored you too much today. I'll be around for the rest of the day. I think we're doing a panel as well. So please, feel free, come and get me any point. White, bright trainers, come and grab me for a chat. I would love to hear more about your stories or answer any questions. And thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Karis. I loved the discussion around sort of traditionally feminine traits and how we can challenge the idea that they are not traits that are fit to work in a particular industry or fit to be in a particular leadership role, and really sort of challenge that assumption within us as well, that actually that not only are they acceptable in this industry or in this role, but they're desirable, and they're going to make us better for it. Fantastic. All right. So I'm going to speak for the next about 15, 20 minutes about some of the different areas of tech. We've covered them a little bit already with the talk around boot camps. This is less about boot camps and more just helping you understand a bit more about the areas of tech that are available to you, or some of them. We unfortunately don't have hours and hours and hours to go through all of them, but I've picked out a few that are hopefully going to be interesting to you. And this talk contains a couple of little activities that you can do on your phone just to have a little play around and a little sort of try before you buy kind of activity on some of these different areas of tech. So we're going to start with IT support. So you might remember that is one of the boot camps that Generation runs. So we touched on this a bit already, but in terms of personality or traits or interests or hobbies that you might have that might suggest that you're a great fit for this kind of program, you could be the go-to person in your family to fix things. When things break, you're the kind of guru that people go to. They come to you when they're panicking and you're cool as a cucumber. And you're like, yeah, it's fine, a piece of cake, I can fix that. Or I can give it a go and I'm going to enjoy the process of just fiddling around, giving it a go, trying to fix something. What you're going to be sort of learning as you come into this area of tech is knowledge of things like hardware and software. So you're going to take those innate problem skills, solving skills that you have, and amplify them with the technical skills to back them up. You generally are going to be someone who has the ability to stay calm under pressure, great with people, good communication, you like helping, and you like, not only do you have an ability to find the answers, you like digging out answers as well. You don't like to stop until you've found the answer to a problem or a solution to a problem. And the bit that everyone's interested in, and rightly so, starting salaries in IT support in Scotland tend to start around 24,000. There's some great progression available within this industry. You typically start out as an IT analyst or a help desk analyst, sometimes called a couple of different names, but that's one of the more common ones. And you can progress into sort of senior roles and management roles or consultant roles as you go up the chain. Not capping at 55 to 60, but definitely clear progression to around 55 to 60. When we say a top end there, it's not really a top end. You can go as far as you possibly want to in tech, but that is a fairly common sort of progression point up to about 55 to 60. Okay, So the next one we're going to talk about is software or games development, sometimes called software engineering or games design, different kind of terminology for it as well. So again, you're going to be someone who likes problem solving, but maybe in a different way, maybe in a very creative way. You like thinking outside the box to find a solution to something. You don't like to be hemmed in by tried and tested solutions. You like to try and think of something new or think of something yourself. So you are someone who is creative and logical. And I think that's something that often people who haven't worked in tech before, who don't know a huge amount about tech, don't really realize that it's a really creative industry to work in, and there's lots of areas within tech that are very creative. When we think of creative jobs, we think of maybe the arts, or acting, or dancing, or singing, or painting. But actually, problem solving can be a really creative endeavor, creative activity as well. And finding a solution in tech can feel a bit like you're an artist, sort of designing a new solution to something. So you are going to be someone who is logical. You like tech, you like thinking through techie problems, but you're creative as well, and you like thinking outside the box and finding a novel solution to something and trying things out before they work. So what you will learn, or what you will develop in this pathway in tech, would be at least one coding language. So all of the apps on your phone, all of the games that you play if you're a gamer, will be based in some sort of coding language. The language itself will differ depending on what you're using, whether what app you're using, what game you're playing. But often it's either Python or JavaScript might be one of the starting languages there, and they're often sort of the gateway languages into a tech career if you want to go down this kind of route. There's lots of places online that you can start self-studying Python or JavaScript, and there's obviously also training programs like Generation and many, many others as well, who will help you take a more structured approach to that learning too. And a bit everyone wants to see. So starting salary, typically around 27, so maybe slightly higher than IT support in Scotland. Again, rising to around 58. That's certainly not a top end, it's not a cap. It's just sort of the common area where people often will progress to, is around the 58,000 mark. Okay, so we're going to have a think about cloud computing now. So as I touched on earlier, so this is an area where you are always going to try to keep up to date with new technologies. Kara's actually mentioned that one of the top 5 trends is that kind of cloud technology becoming mainstream. And not only has it become mainstream, it's constantly evolving. It's always changing. There's different organizations, different companies, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, all looking at different ways to develop cloud technology and how we store data, given that that is such a huge part of how we work online now, is how we can store that kind of data. So you like to try and keep up to date. You're someone who maybe likes to be ahead of trends or likes to be on top of trends in tech or otherwise. And you like working as part of a team as well. It's a very collaborative part of tech here. It's not that kind of maybe stereotypical idea of being sat in a cold, dark room with no windows, kind of coding away for hours and hours. That exists. If you are that person, no judgment, that exists. You can do that. But if you are a collaborative person who prefers working in more of a team kind of setting and bouncing ideas off each other, then this might be an interesting fit for you. So lots of different kind of platforms that you would learn and lots of different skills you would learn as part of cloud. I've already mentioned some of the organizations and companies who are operating in the cloud space. So you'll see AWS there is Amazon Web Services. You've got Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure. So Azure being the kind of product name of the cloud platform. And then some of the other things you will learn as you develop your experience and skills in cloud would be another platform called Linux, and then skills such as networking. Now, we're not thinking networking is in how you speak to people in a room, although the concept is kind of similar. It's more about how different tech networks are talking to each other. Database is Python again, so you've got that coding language coming into play there as well. You won't delve quite as much into coding as a cloud engineer as you might do as a data engineer or as a software engineer, but you would develop that kind of entry level or kind of gateway language of Python. And we're going to have a go on that, one of those in a minute. Okay, we're looking at about 25 to 30,000 pounds starting salary across Scotland, rising again to around 55. And the sky's the limit with some of these areas, but particularly cloud because it is ever evolving. So it's time to have a go. So if you would like to, everyone in the room, everyone can play along. There are no prizes, I'm afraid, but everyone can play along nonetheless. So you grab your phone out. You can do this at home as well. You follow the link that is on the screen. So hub.careers/emo code. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. This is not a test. You do not need any prior knowledge of Python or any other coding language to do this. Okay. If someone can kindly give me a wave when they're there, just so I know it's all working, that would be great. Thank you very much. Okay. So once you are there, you come across a screen a little bit like this. We are going to write a very small bit of Python code. I'm going to teach you how to do it. And then you'll get a couple of minutes to play around and see if you can tweak it or change it a bit based on what you'd like to write. So when you see the screen, if you can tap on the little pencil, I wish I had a laser pointer at this point, but the little pencil that is just at the top there, and that should give you a few lines of starter code. So this is almost giving you some instructions on how the system wants you to talk to it. So it's telling you that you need to write your code underneath row 11, where it says put code to run under here. So they are the starting instructions, and then anything you want the system to do, you would write under there. So if you can navigate and tap on sort of row 12, where there's some empty space, and you're going to write this, letter for letter. You're going to write print, bracket, apostrophe, I was trying to think of the right word then, apostrophe, hello, apostrophe, comma, world. You might find that it completes a little bit of it for you as you're writing. It might also input some of it for you. And then when you've done that, there should be a little play symbol, a little triangle play symbol at the top that you can tap. And it should show you the word hello, followed by some world symbols, as you can see on the screen. Give me a wave when you're the first person to get there. Lovely, okay, it's working. What you've just officially done is your first bit of coding. That wasn't hard, was it? Anybody could do that. Gets a bit more complex after that, but it's a nice way to give it a little go. And then what you can do is have a little play around. So rather than writing hello world, you could write anything on the screen in place of the word world and see what you come up with. You can also replace the word hello with any kind of text that you would like to write there. So spend a minute giving a go, having another try at a different emoji. And you can write a few lines of code as well. So as you keep tapping on the empty space underneath your bit of code, you can write a new line. If you are particularly pleased with what you've managed to write, come and show me later. We might be able to rustle up a prize. Okay. Okay, great stuff. So I think we'll move on. All right, so bookmark that page, have a play around with it at home. It's a great way of having a go without breaking anything. You can't break the website, you can't break the system, you can play with it until your heart's content. Nothing is going to crash, which is lovely. You can learn by doing, learn by playing. So the next piece we're going to talk about is data analytics and data engineering, sometimes called data analyst rather than analytics. So, are you someone who likes making lists or spreadsheets? Is that how you like to plan your life? Guilty as charged. So, if you've ever made a spreadsheet, even if you've ever made a list that you like to tick off, to plan something, to budget something, to make a decision, to plan an event, I think I ended up with about 20 different spreadsheets when I was planning my own wedding. And I thought, oh, maybe I should reconsider my career here. Maybe I should go into data instead. This is fun. I'm enjoying this more than I probably should. So if you've ever done that, it could mean that you have the right skills and qualities to go into this area of tech. And then in terms of what you're going to learn as you kind of progress down this pathway, very much number skills. So this is the more, to put it very technically, the more numbery, the more numerate kind of side of tech. So you are someone who's going to be interested in numbers. Maybe you had a bit of an aptitude for maths at school. Doesn't matter if you didn't take it really, really far. Doesn't matter if you didn't go to college or university to do your maths, but if you had a bit of an aptitude for maths and numbers at school and you were someone who maybe didn't find it hugely difficult and maybe couldn't understand why other people found maths really challenging or hated maths at school, then this could be an interesting pathway for you. So you will obviously learn lots of familiarity with Excel. You will develop fantastic, whizzy Excel skills beyond my wildest dreams, certainly, when I was planning my wedding. And then again, that Python comes up. So you're going to see this kind of gateway coding language come up time and time again in some of the more numerate or techie areas of tech. So that gateway Python language once again. And then you're looking at a starting salary of between 26 and 30,000 pounds in Scotland, rising, and there's a really big range here for a reason, because it does depend on kind of what area or what pathway you particularly want to specialise in, or what particular skill set you develop, but looking at between 50 and 90,000 pounds a year. So the sky really is the limit on that one. Okay, and then we have one more little activity for you to do. So if you could spend a second just going to the link on your screen. So bit.ly/Scottish Census. And as the name might suggest, this is going to navigate you to a web page, Scottish Government web page, showing you different options to play around with a couple of the different censuses that have been taken in the last kind of 20 years or so. So I think there's a 2001 census on there and a 2011. We're going to be playing around with the 2011 one today. So once you're there, you hopefully will see this, and you just need to make sure you've got 2011 tapped on your phone or device. You'll be looking at that one. And so we're using this website because it is an amazing repository of a huge data set. There's not many data sets bigger in a single country than the census. So you've got 5.5 million records in this one sort of database that is being sort of at the back end of a web page. We see the web page, but there's this massive data set and database that a data engineer or data analyst has had to produce and design in the back end. Okay, so you don't need to do anything for the moment, but what I've done is search the postcode of the event venue that we're in today. So search the postcode of Glasgow Science Museum. And I had a look at what I could find, and I was really interested to see what kind of different data categories I could break that number down into. So it originally showed me how many people are living in this postcode. It wasn't huge, as you might expect. It's not a hugely residential area, but I think there are around maybe 90 or so people living in this particular postcode. And then I had a look at how I can break that down. So if you're someone who's interested in how you can break down data and the story that you can tell from data, so that's what data analysts do. They tell a story with the data to help businesses make decisions, to help strategists and companies understand what they should do next, what their next steps should be. You are the person who is going to translate a load of numbers or a data set into something that's a story or a narrative to turn into actions that a business can take. So I had a quick look at age. I thought that was quite interesting. So as I said, about 90 people in the postcode, fairly evenly split, but there's a big chunk of people who are between 45 and 59 years old, 30%, a third of people there. 30 people between 45 and 59 years old. So I thought that was quite interesting. I wonder why that is. Is there something about the area, something about the history of the area? And I had a quick look at household size as well. It's amazing what you can find out with these postcodes. You really can snoop on your neighbours if you really want to. So 37 households in this particular postcode. So not a huge postcode, as you'd expect, not a hugely residential area. And you've got a fairly even range here, but by far and away the biggest was people living with just one other person. So it could be roommates or it could be a couple. Half of those households were just two people. And I had to think, I was like, well, as I was walking here, I saw lots of flats. And I was like, okay, that maybe makes sense. So you've got lots of flats, lots of new build flats. That could be couples. You wouldn't necessarily expect to see huge families in some of those flats that have been newly built in the area. So, okay, that kind of makes sense. So what I thought you could do is have a look at your own postcode. So if you want to type your own postcode in, and you don't have to shout out these answers, but you can if you're feeling brave, but have a think about these questions. So what's the population of your postcode? Is that surprising to you? Is it more? Is it less than you thought it was going to be? How does the breakdown of age in your area, in your particular postcode area, compare to the Scottish average? So the picture I've got on the screen here is not just one postcode, it's the whole of Scotland, so just under 5.5 million people. And what I thought was interesting about that is you've got far fewer a far fewer proportion of those 45 to 59-year-olds across the whole country than you do in this particular postcode. And if I had time, I'd dig into sort of, oh, I wonder why that is. But you can dig into that and you can really tell a story about an area just using data, just using the numbers. And you can extract conclusions just from the numbers and tell a story that way. So how does the breakdown of age in your area compare to the Scottish average? Does it look very different? Is it about the same? If it looks very different, have a think about why is that different? What do you know about your area that might suggest why that looks a little bit different? And then if you see on your screen, there's lots of different categories that you can flick across as well. So there was, I think there was one about health status, which was interesting. There's age, household size, education, employment as well, and unemployment. So have a look through those different categories and see if you can find a stat that might surprise you in one of those categories. And if you are feeling brave, feel free to pop your hand up and you can tell us what's one stat that surprises you or interests you about your postcode. But as you're looking through the categories, see if you can start building a story in your head, a narrative about your area, just through the numbers, just through the data. And that's what data analysts do. If you're less interested in the narrative and more interested in how they built the database, then you're probably more of a data engineer than an analyst. But that's okay as well. Okay. Last chance for anyone who's feeling brave. Anyone has got something that interested them or surprised them about their postcode? Pop your hand up. If not, I will put you out your misery and we can move on. Okay. All right. Well, maybe bookmark that page. If it has interested you, bookmark the page and see if you can do a bit more exploring at a later date. Okay, so we're going to take a short break now, just so we can do a little bit of rejigging in the room. So we're going to take a 5-minute break for you to stretch your legs, go to the loo, grab yourself a drink, and then we're going to come back and we're going to have all of our wonderful speakers together for our panel discussion. We've got a few pre-prepared questions we're going to ask them, but use the break to think of any questions that you would like to ask them too. Okay, so we have 3 from Microsoft, 2 from the Forest and Land Registry, one of whom is a Generation graduate as well, who you might like to ask about bootcamp. So use your break to have a little think about what you'd like to ask, and we'll see you. have a few people trickling back in. We're just herding everyone back in from break time. Oh, that's made it sound like school then, didn't it, break time? So we're going to make a start with our next session, which is a panel discussion. As you can see, I'm joined by lots of wonderful women from the world of tech, who all work in different areas of tech, and some which might surprise you, some which might sound more techy than others. And we're going to hear a bit about their journeys and ask them a few questions, but we'll also open the floor to all of you. If you have any questions for the panel as well as people online at home who can write in questions on the live stream. So what I'd love to start with is just a bit of an introduction to you all. Obviously, we've had a lovely talk from wonderful Karis, but we don't know who any of you are. So perhaps, Karis, you can start very briefly, just do a very quick recap.
I would just like to say I could go up and do another keynote on perimenopausal brain-fogged women, because I kept calling the lovely Stephanie here Jennifer, but I ran with it.
I was really enjoying it.
I ran with it for the whole session, so apologies, Jennifer. I don't think anyone needs any further introduction to me, so I'll hand over to the lovely Gemma.
Nothing like a good icebreaker there. So hi everybody. It's very special. It feels kind of like a Dragon's Den kind of fashion. That's what it feels like. But I'm called Gemma Sinclair, and I have worked at Microsoft for about a year and a half now. I'll give you a very watered down version of what my role is there. I'm called a customer success account manager. And in essence, that's me working with specific customers in the financial sector with their IT transformation projects, and also helping them to kind of realise like the benefits of the investments that they've already made in Microsoft products. So I will pass you on to Jess.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess Kuma. I've been working at Microsoft for just under 4 years, and I'm a graduate apprentice. So I go to university once a week studying business management, but I've just finished my degree, so that's good news. And I work in the public sector ATU, which specifically the local and regional government team. So my colleagues manage our relationships with customers across UK councils. But I've also just recently started as a comment in the go-to-market team, which is a marketing team that looks across industry, and I'm aligned to public sector. So I'll probably talk about that a little bit later.
Hiya, I'm Lucy Evans. I've been working with Forestry and Land Scotland since January. For desktop support, I actually got into that role from the Generation course, so I'm sure once we move on you'll hear more about that, but that's basically me.
That was quick. Hi everyone, I'm Carol Houston, and I also work for Forestry and Land Scotland as the Senior Service Delivery Manager. So effectively look after all of the service delivery teams, be desktop support, which Lucy mentioned there, the field support, which is more infrastructure and connectivity and networking, and the service manager guys as well. So
fantastic. We've got a great sort of breadth of different areas represented here. So I wonder if we can start with what first sparked your interest in tech? So I know you've all had slightly different journeys, working in different areas. What's first sparked your interest? And we've had great answers from previous panels where some of them have actually owned up to the fact it was an accident. And they just sort of accidentally stumbled into tech, and that's okay as well. That is a perfectly valid journey. So what first sparked your interest in tech? We don't have to have everyone answer everything, but if you'd like to answer, just wave and we can get the mic down to you.
I'll give an honest answer. Working from home. I really wanted to work from home. And I noticed that working with tech, that was like most tech jobs, pretty much all of them I could see, was more home-based than office-based. So that was basically me, but I also just like the idea of, you use technology all the time, everybody's using their phone, their laptops and that, so I was like, if I can get into a role where I'm learning about that, if I'm ever having issues on my own, at least I can, just provide for myself. Anybody else?
Yeah, sure. So after I did a degree in anthropology, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So I did an internship in marketing and finance, hoping that would help me figure it out. And I really loved the marketing internship, and that was at a big data storage solution company. And it was really challenging because I hadn't heard of any of the tech that they were using. It was a new industry, new customers and new competitors. But I really liked the challenging aspect of it. So when I got back to Edinburgh, I applied for apprenticeships in digital marketing, and Microsoft was one of the companies, probably the only one I knew of at the time, so that's why I ended up working there, and I knew there'd be loads of opportunities to work across different teams as well.
This is actually a good one. I always quite enjoy this kind of question, but I'm not going to say it was an accident kind of tripping into the tech sector, but I used to, before joining the tech industry almost 13 years ago now, I used to work for public sector and I worked for the Crown Office and I had a leadership role there, so I felt like that was a really good kind of job for life. You know, if you're public sector, I really enjoyed it for the most part. And I guess there was a recommendation made by a few people that I know, some family, some friends that were working for Dell Technologies at the time. That's actually where I started my tech career. And so there was a few different roles that came up. So it did actually take a bit convincing because I wasn't really wanting to leave the role that I had. Actually, even when I found out I got the job, I wasn't even, kind of quite excited about it. I was more scared, thinking, what am I doing? I'm going into a completely different sector with different people. And maybe there's other questions that are going to come up later on about, kind of the pathway into that and how that progressed. But it wasn't ever something that I planned on. But I think when I was kind of stacking it up, when I was going in to accept that role from leaving my public sector job, it was a case of all those years ago, I'm like, there's obviously a huge investment in tech. There's always going to be advancements and there's always going to be a need for that sector. Always going to be jobs in that sector as well. So I just decided at that point, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to see how it goes. And thankfully, I'm still in that same kind of line of work now. So, Gareth, you want to give a word?
Mine was a little bit sort of lame, really. I feel a bit imposter. I just liked maths and physics at school. So when I was weighing up sort of further education options, engineering came into the mix. And I actually liked the fact that there wasn't a lot of women in it because I thought, I can, I don't need to be a guy to do that. And that proved to be the case. So yeah, it was just more for me, something that I liked and, like maths and physics, and explored engineering as an option.
All right, is that fantastic? So I wonder if, Kara's kind of touched on it a bit already, but I'm always interested to hear other answers as well. Why is it important to get more women to tech? Why are we bothering doing events like this? Why are we bothering to try and get more women onto our boot camps, into the industry? Why is that important? Why is it something that we should care about doing?
I'm going to give this to Gemma. I'll say one word: the UK economy, right? You only need to look at what's happening in the UK economy, and we all have a job to play, whatever we do. And I'm really passionate that the more people, particularly women, that we can get into roles, it's going to build our economy up. So that is my political answer, and that's the only political thing I'll say.
It's okay, so you're allowed to be political. I know that Karis kind of touched on it during our presentation, where there's kind of a data slide about some of the representation and some of the barriers to it as well. But just kind of coming back to, there are some really unique things that women can bring into a workplace, be it tech or be it otherwise. And even I just think about my current job at the minute. I work with predominantly men in my immediate team, and we've just got very unique and different ways of thinking, and having that difference of perspective and having a confidence to be able to share an idea, and especially, I guess, taking it away from my own kind of team environment. If you're looking at, and again, Karis, you touched on it in your keynote speech, if you're looking at product design and development, it cannot be one-sided. And at the minute, obviously, it would seem that when we're looking at the percentages of where those jobs are filled, there's more men than there are women. And it's really important, even from that, from having a complete diverse background, but to really open that up to women. First of all, to know that they've got, unique strengths and opinion and experience that actually counts. And that doesn't mean just about having a qualification behind it. It's just about having that, that unique kind of sense of perspective. And we absolutely need more of that. And that's why doing things like this is great, because we get to come in and speak to people who aren't yet in that industry, who are maybe considering going into that kind of, into that line of work. And it's really exciting to see even just how much interest there is in having programs that Stephanie's team are running here to try and get you on the right path. So, yeah, Jess, do you want to pass it down?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I would just say it's really important to represent the people you're trying to serve, whether that's citizens or customers or the general public. I was doing a bit of prep for this session, and I googled an article which was all about why women should be in product design. And there was a couple of examples which included that smartphones are made for the average male hand, so they're slightly bigger, and that smart watches, the wrist strap's slightly bigger as well. And voice recognition usually picks up men's voices rather than women's voices. So they're kind of, I guess, more superficial. But on the other hand, they looked at seatbelts and they found that car crash dummies were usually based on men's bodies, which tended to be a little bit taller and the weight distribution was a little bit different. And this meant that women were more likely to be injured in a car crash than men. So that's obviously quite a serious one. But it just goes to show that if more women were involved in the product design teams, the finance teams, or the marketing teams, if they were there in the room when this product was being designed, then perhaps it would have ended up differently and those products would have been more successful for more people.
I don't think I can top any of that. I was just going to say it's just nice to go into a workplace and see a mixture of men and women instead of just one set. That was all I could think, and they were all saying all these really deep answers. But no, but I also feel sometimes, I don't want to be like sexist or anything, but like men can sometimes talk to women like they're stupid. So like if you've got like women in tech support, they can talk to other women like nice and friendly. No, I'm not saying all men do this because they don't. It's just sometimes, someday. But I mean, sometimes women can act like that as well. But I think it's just nice to see a mixture of different people and just, I don't know, it just makes the place more welcoming, I think.
Thank you. I think for me, the question is, why not? Why should we not go into tech? Why are we any different to men? You know, why should the numbers not be the same across the board as it is for men? We're absolutely more than capable of doing the job. I would say, as you highlighted earlier, Karis, we've got skills there that, you know, are more feminine than they're masculine. We can be more caring, we can be more empathetic. Certainly for me, I've worked within a service delivery role throughout my IT career. And, you know, we've had people in, we've had guys in, we've had girls in, and in my opinion, I would say that probably 80 or 90% of the times, the females or you know, the girls seem to be more sympathetic. They get it. They're more patient. They're just so, you know, generally more understanding. So that's one of the reasons why we should go into tech.
So, keeping the mic down this end for a minute, Lucy, without putting you on the spot too much, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about what's the bootcamp like? You know, they've heard me talk about it, but I haven't lived it. You've lived it. You know, what was it like, and how did it kind of prepare you for going into your role?
I think the boot camp was really beneficial. I think for it being only 9 weeks long, I think I got a lot out of that. I mean, you think of that, 9 weeks, that's, like, realistically, that's not that long. But I think, because I was going into this, no IT experience at all. I mean, I was focused more towards customer service jobs, and I wasn't really, nothing in my brain was like, oh, IT. But it was like, it was something that I was like, you know, I would like to learn it. You know, I'd like to see what that's like, because as everybody said, there's so many opportunities within that. But with the generation course, I definitely picked up a lot of knowledge based on like the type of issues people would have. Say if they've like just like anything where it comes with like their software's crashed or anything, just any kind of issues, we were getting told how you would kind of face that situation, and we were getting put in like scenarios where you would play as like a tech support role, and then you would have someone else in the course playing as a customer, and they would just come at you with an issue, and you would kind of like resolve the issue. But obviously the issue wasn't there, but there was actually this thing called test out labs, and that's where you actually would have the issue there, and you would do that. Oh, that sounded dead loud there. I don't know, was I screaming there? I got a wee bit of an echo there. But I'll just explain what happened in the course. So you get the 8 weeks. It would be 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So you were logging on from home, and you were going to go through a day-to-day of what it's like to be in the roles, but you would also learn how you would get interviewed for these roles. You would also learn how to build a CV. So I went in nothing. I had no IT knowledge. I was useless. I remember the first day, the only thing I knew was how to turn the laptop on. I mean, I was struggling to join Zoom. That's like, from now I can tell that's like really easy. You're literally just clicking a link. But even for me, I struggled to click a link. So it was bad. But I managed to pick up just the most of like the IT basics. Like I can now like back then I couldn't navigate my way through just Windows, but now I feel as though, you know, I have the knowledge now, and I mean that's me in a role right now supporting people with issues. So don't know how that happened, but it happened. But what I really liked most about it was the collaborative side. You were constantly talking to your peers. You were constantly interacting with the instructor. So anytime you were like, oh, I don't know this, how would I face this? You were constantly getting that support, and you were able to get. I mean, I remember when I was having an interview, I was like, oh, I don't want to do an interview. Nobody likes interviews. You're like, oh, it's too scary. And you could just like message one of these instructors, or even just one of the mentors, and be like, going to do some mocks with me? And they would, like that, you'd get a reply after like 2 seconds and be like, aye, catch you in 5 minutes and we'll see what we can get done for you. So I felt as though I was in there at a 0%, like imagine it, say it's like a percentage. I was in there at 0, and I felt as though I came out quite high. I'm not saying 100, no one can get to 100. 99, I will say 99. I definitely felt as if my first day in the job, which is with Forestry and Land Scotland, I got that job through Generation, through the interview process, which was just, you graduate the course, that's you got the course on your CV, you'll say, oh, I done role plays, you know, I done labs, I've built on my customer service skills, I've interacted with people, and it's gotten me these skills. Now you actually do learn about IT, don't think you don't, you're actually gonna learn about what computers are, how to fix computers, so you're not just going to not know nothing. So there was like, obviously coming into the job, there was some things I was like, oh, I know how to do that, but it's like you're also building the skill to be able to say, I can help you, because you know, you might know how to do something, but who says you can just walk forward and help somebody? I mean, I certainly, if it's optional, yeah, I'll probably choose not to help, if I'm being honest. But you know, sometimes people approach you and you can't just turn around and be like, oh no, I'm not helping you. You need to, because that's what your job is. You're supposed to be there for the support. So it definitely helped building my confidence. I feel as though I'm more approachable. I can approach more people. But I definitely think, for what it's worth, 8 weeks, you are getting a CV writ for you, basically. They're telling you how to write it, what to write in it, what you've learned, because obviously your brains might not know how to get all of that in, but they're going to get it all in for you. You're going to get interview skills, you're going to get your tech skills, you're going to get your customer service skills. So basically you can go from 0 to getting a job, and I mean, I'm very happy in the job, so it was definitely worth it for 8 weeks of my life. To get for that, I think that's quite easy.
I was just thinking, I wonder when you were talking about what you've learned and the confidence and stuff, I wonder whether you'd have been happy to come and do this and sit in front of loads of people before Generation Boot Camp.
100% no.
Possibly not.
That would never happen.
And then Carol, what about your version of that, your side of that kind of experience from an organisation hiring in?
So I think Brian Lennox had contacted our director, David Exeter, over
One of our
LinkedIn.
Generation team.
Yes, Brian Lennox from Generation. And David Exeter, he's our director, he's dead laid back, he's one of the good guys, you know, and he said, you know, I think this might be an opportunity here. I myself didn't go in with any degrees or really IT knowledge when I started off in IT. So, you know, I think the rest of the leadership team, we all decided that, yep, let's go for it. So contacted Brian back. The initial meeting, I think there was about 8 candidates. He did say there was only 6 and then threw us with 8. So we read their CVs, we spoke initially to everyone, and then we kind of shortlisted them to the next maybe 4, possibly 5 at that point, where we interviewed, and then we did a second interview. We were really fortunate that between myself and Murray, who actually did the interviewing of the candidates, we couldn't actually decide out of two. So there was Lucy and there was James as well. And it was really splitting hairs between them. So I actually went back to my director and said, any chance we could squeeze two instead of one? Two for the price of one. And so we have, and James is working with Forestry and Land Scotland as well. Both are doing a great job. And I have to say, Lucy she had fire in her belly throughout the interview process, throughout the CV. Anytime we met with her, you know, she was so charismatic, and just the fire in the belly was there. And, you know, there is absolutely no regrets. And I would hope that anyone else that does the programme has the same, builds on that confidence as you did, because we even had the conversation before when we were sitting back there, should we do a runner? Should we do the, but I said, no, Lucy, we'll put our big girl pants on and we'll do this. So there we are.
I love that. That's my favourite story that's come out of any of the events that we've done so far. Amazing. Thank you so much. I want to throw it open to all of you. If you're feeling brave and want to pop your hand up and you have a question, you can do that. Amazing. All right. Ashley, would you mind being my glamorous assistant and running over with a mic? Thank you. Just so we can hear you on the live stream as well. Being told to go around the route that has no cables. And then bring it back to the... Thank you. So this lady here, in a second row.
Hiya. I've got a question regarding account management for yourself, basically. So I'm really interested in sales and account management. I've got a bit of experience in that. So I was wondering what skills and what program with third generation I can possibly do in order to further my skills into basically bringing that experience into tech. So having had that background, how can I, what program can I possibly do, and what skills can I bring into tech?
Might want to broaden that. I was going to say, we might want to broaden it out just to think about. Maybe you can touch on, rather than generation specifically, like what could next steps be into the sort of area that you work in.
Very good question. So in my role just now, and this is where it can sink in with what you'll be able to learn at Generation, you would be, I guess, in any tech job, be it Microsoft, Google, AWS, there will be an expectation at some point for you to have a kind of a base level knowledge and understanding about the technology. It doesn't have to be specific to any one kind of path, but I think that's going to be a really good start if that's where you want to begin to look and speak with Stephanie and have a look at some of the courses that will kind of underpin the real technical side. It's brilliant to hear that you've got account management experience. I think that can be carried from any different role, from any different sector as well. For myself, when I kind of came into this job at Microsoft, it was absolutely account management experience that I had before, but layered on top of that, it was I did different certifications, not at uni or not at college. I did external qualifications for project management, and so I really kind of leaned into that, as well as just, you know, kind of moving on through experience and then adding on all the technical knowledge and capabilities after that. So I guess bringing it back to your point, brilliant that you've got that experience, that you've got that kind of foundational kind of path for a specific job, perhaps, that if you don't want to do something that's kind of outright technical, but it is absolutely going to be worth your while to, you know, as I say at the end, have a chat with Stephanie, have a look at any specific path that might kind of lead into some of those skills that you've got, but also kind of give you that technical kind of background as well. Hope that helps.
We'll be really happy to have a chat with anyone who wants to talk about particular programs or kind of what that particular pathway would be. So grab myself or grab Ashleen at the end. Yeah. All right. Would anyone? Oh, right at the back. There we go. Good job. We've got trainers on today, Ashleen.
Hello. I have a question, maybe for more like generation, like organization, because, for example, I tried to study some code, like JavaScript, and it was a disaster. But but for example, in the IT sphere, it's a lot of job like project management, like digital marketing, and a lot of these brilliant girls worked in this field, like in marketing. So my question is, maybe in the future you will add this kind of courses, and also my question is how to, maybe if I will take this course, which kind of course I can take, and then I can transfer it for project management, for example, or for marketing, because for me it's like more interesting than just numbers and codes. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I think what we'll do with any specific questions about generation programs, if you grab myself or Ashleen towards the end, because our lovely panel here won't necessarily be able to answer stuff but all about generation programs, and we want to make sure that we're using sort of their time and expertise really well. But I will absolutely come and have a chat with you towards the end, and if anyone's got anything to add.
Yeah, so I don't have any qualifications in marketing, so I've probably did the opposite. I've kind of been in a tech and then sort of navigated to marketing. So I would say that baseline, and Gemma talked about it, that baseline, of thinking about the skill set you do have, it could be account management, layering it with tech, and then thinking about how you then navigate through different pathways could be a way forward as well. So that's what happened with me, kind of thinking about how I use those other skills into things that I liked more, which was sort of marketing. I don't know, maybe Jess, when you did some of your marketing, if you've got maybe more to add on that.
Yeah, I'd probably recommend looking at LinkedIn learning courses as well. There's a lot of the behavioural skills that we touched on earlier, especially for marketing, like communication, stakeholder management, project planning, content creation, things like that. LinkedIn Learning could be a really good place to start because they have bite-sized videos and longer videos, and quite a lot of them are free to access as well. So I definitely recommend checking that page out when you have time.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It's a great place to start. Yep, we've got another question just here, and the lady in the pink jacket. Thank you, Ashley. Nice and loud for us.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is for people with, for someone like me with the degree, I have the qualification, I have the skill sets, but zero experience. It's been sort of difficult to actually land a role because they expect me to have some form of experience. And I really don't know how to go ahead at this point. Yeah. So that's my question.
Great question. Thank you.
Thank you. I think from my perspective, if you want to get involved in IT or tech but don't really know how you want to be involved in tech per se, I think it's probably a good idea initially to start with some kind of the IT support thing is what I would say, because essentially you will be on a service desk, you'll be open to lots of end user kind of queries, you know, and working with, I mean, we support the desktop, we support the applications, and we also support mobile devices within the service desk. And, you know, there's always going to be second or third line teams there. There's going to be development teams within the tech group that you're working with. So, you know, it allows you possibly to branch out and maybe get some experience with some of the other teams that's within the digital area within the workplace, I would say. But definitely as a start off, I would say IT support, you get a nice rounded feel from it from there.
No, I'd like to add to that.
Volunteering, right? You want to earn some money. It's hard to get that balance. I would look at everything that's available in Scotland to go to from a networking perspective, because you just want that one sort of door to open for you. A lot of startups, that are looking for people with skills and not necessarily the experience, because they might start, to be fair, at a lower pay grade, right, but gets your foot in the door. So I'd look at as many networking events that you can get yourself to as possible, because to be honest, sometimes when you go into that, it's heavy lift going into the interview process, preparing for it, and it hurts your morale when you think, well, I've got all these skills, but yet I'm not being successful in any of these interviews. A lot of time, and I'll be very honest, sometimes people have been earmarked for jobs within an organisation, so it still hurts though, still hurts when you're going through that process. So I would say try and get yourself to as many networking events as possible, talk to as many people as possible, have something, if you've got it, pre-prepared with the skills you've got, and you know, anything else that kind of talks about a bit about who you are. So as well as the skills, who are you, what else, what's your unique value proposition? Leave that with everybody. You know, try and do those types of things as well. The hustle is real. It's not easy. So I totally hear you, but stick at it, 'cause it sounds as if you've got a lot of amazing skills to offer.
I think we've got time for one more question from the audience. Oh, lady over here, we've just pipped you, but we will make sure you get a chance to chat to people just at the end of the session.
Thanks so much. It's been really informative, and I do apologise again that I was late. My question is for, as women in tech, work-life balance is something that people talk about a lot. You're talking about working from home. Obviously, some people have children, some people aren't. What are the things that are being put in place for supporting, whether mentally or in maternity-wise, or in terms of female health as well, especially when sometimes it is a little bit more male-heavy? And do companies support these kind of things? You know, you're not, if you're going away and coming back, and especially people who are interested in going in and maybe wanting to have families in the future, is that something that's available and discussed openly?
What a great question.
Sorry, it's a layered one.
No, it's a fantastic question and super important. Who would like to go first?
I feel like you jumped on it.
If anyone has got Instagram and doesn't follow Mother Pucka, you need to follow Mother Pucka on Instagram, right? MOTHERPUKKA. She has been, even when I was in Australia, she has, and single-handedly is looking to reform bills in the UK to support women who are being ousted, and still are being ousted out the workplace. And this is not just a tech industry statement, are fearing for their jobs to go and have a baby. And it really, really gets to me, right? You shouldn't be fearing for your job when you go on maternity leave, because you're going to another job that's one of the most important jobs you'll ever do in your life. And that just really upsets me that that happens in this day and age. So to answer your question, I think it depends on the industry. I would personally, if you have, you know, if you're not like, and I know everybody's circumstances are different, and sometimes everybody needs to pay bills and make ends meet, and sometimes you don't have a choice. But try your best to research what's available for you, and don't settle and push that envelope as well, because I just don't think that in the UK we are anywhere near where we need to be in terms of balancing for maternity for women, or paternal leave. I mean, you look at what's happening in Sweden, they get goodness knows how many weeks, couple of years between males and females, but yet the women still are here, the bulk of the caregivers. By choice, that's fine. I mean, I love being the caregiver to my son's great, but it's not the way it should be. So I would research it. It's very, very different. I think the standard policies here in the UK are not the best. So private corporations tend to offer more than probably public sector, but maybe Gemma can comment on public sector ones if you, I don't know if you're still in public.
No, well, and it's a great question. You might have seen me just kind of get fired up for that one day. I'm like, oh, so that question's been planted in there. So there's maybe kind of two parts to my answer specifically here, and we can, of course, pass it along. I didn't have, so I've got two young children. They're 10 and 6. Is that considered young anymore? Your kids are younger. But I didn't have my children when I was in public sector, so I can't speak for what the packages are like there. But if I just kind of touch on my first part of the answer, which is to do with our current employer just now, which is, of course, Microsoft. As an employer, trying to make sure that work-life balance is there, they do have a lot in place to really encourage that. No, they wouldn't even just call it work-life balance. It would be more about working flexibly, and they make a huge amount of effort. Whether or not we, kind of take up some of those initiatives and support systems is up to all of us, right? But as an employer, as being a large tech company, they have and do give a lot of support to try and, for both men and women, because in some situations the men might be the primary caregiver, but they absolutely do try and consistently make time and space to remind all employees, be it again men or women or otherwise, to make sure that you are finding a balance in a job that can, and an industry that is quite fast paced. It can be exhausting, right? It can. So that's the first part of my answer there. As an employer, again, as Cara says, doing research into different organisations to see what they would offer you, and just try and project in the future what you might be looking for in terms of your family and all that kind of things later. So that's part one. Part two, for me, I've always worked full time. So when I had my children, when I took some time off when I had them, and then I came back into work and I came back full time, that was a financial reason why I had to do that. I didn't have an option to be part-time, and I have a really good family support network near me, so that that helped me to try and redress that, kind of bring that balance up. I won't lie, it can be difficult, and actually I think this might come back to one of the points on, in many situations, the women are the primary caregiver. I am for my children, whether or not, and I've got a very good and helpful husband, by the way. Again, I'm very lucky. He does all the fun stuff, right? But so I do have good support, but that doesn't mean that I'm not pulled in different directions. There are certain situations, or like even coming here today, it's actually me that's trying to think ahead and who's going to get the kids, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. But it is possible, but it's as much as being able to be confident in the value that you're bringing into that job, be it with any organisation, tech or otherwise, but specifically in tech. And hopefully, as a society, we kind of match up to being able to give women space, to not fear that they're going to be left out of opportunity or left out of, promotion or learning new skills because we might find ourselves without time to apply them. So a brief roundup, the right employer will absolutely promote work-life balance and put some provisions and systems in place to reinforce that message and to try and make it easier for you. But second to that, I think as women, we will still find it, or you might, as you project into the future, if you've not got children yet and you're maybe planning that in at some point, it will be difficult, but persevere, lean on the support systems that you've got, and just know that we're all stressed out of our minds as well anyway. So,
amazing. So I think we'll close on one final question, if that's all right, and maybe we can pass it to everyone. If you can maybe do a sort of 30-second answer, if possible, on what advice would you give to someone in this room who's just starting out, or reframe that as, what piece of advice do you wish that you'd had been given that maybe you weren't given?
I'll start and then I'll pass this off. Know that there is absolutely a space in an organisation in this sector somewhere for you. You might not think it at the minute, and I think it's a great step that you're coming here now just to kind of dip your toe into it and see if it is. But I can guarantee you there's absolutely space and a need for lots of the skills and personality that I'm sure that you've all got. So just, it sounds dead cheesy, but just believe in that ability that you've got and know that you've got a place in that sector and you've got a lot to offer. So,
yeah, I think I probably said it when I talked earlier. I wish if I could look back at myself 20 years ago, I'd have spoke up more and not covered to try and fit in with a male world, and kind of tapped into what was my traits, and I didn't. So that would be the advice I would give back to myself, is be confident in who I am and those traits, and let them come to the forefront.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. We had to do IT at school at GCSE level, and I think I failed it 3 times. and it was just a fail or a pass, but it was a regulated exam where you had to go through each process on an Excel spreadsheet and follow all the correct steps and memorize them. And if you didn't do that correctly, then you failed it. So it really wasn't the right way of empowering people around technology. But aside from that piece of practical advice, I'd say is thinking about your LinkedIn profile if you don't have one already. And that's because I was speaking to someone this morning and they really said focus on building your personal brand, which values resonate with you, and talk about what interests you. And then potential employers will be able to see that and they'll get like a feeling of who you are.
I was taking, when they were all speaking there, I was trying to think of something to say and I honestly can't. But what I've noticed, what's came with me, I remember like back when I was in school and that, I never spoke, I never done anything. I was very just to myself, so no one could see what like I actually was like. And I noticed going into like work environments, that whole thing changed. Like it just seemed to be the fact, it wasn't me that was the problem, it was school. I didn't like school. So when I started to like just show, like, because I'm dead bubbly, but I remember when I speak to people from school, they're like, bubbly, you were like the most depressing person on planet Earth. And I was like, seriously, I'm like the most bubbly and outgoing person out. Me personally, that's how I would describe myself. So I would say if you're ever like in work environments and that, I wouldn't be embarrassed in that. I mean, I tell people, all the weird crap that happens with me.
You're not the first person to swear at one of these events. It's fine.
I don't know, I just love to like put myself out there and just be daft. I think that gets me, I don't know, you seem to get on with me, so there we go, so it's worked. I don't know, I think just like, I don't want to say be yourself, because I think everybody says that, and I don't want to like be that and just like take the answer that's there, but I don't know, I think just like be daft, just have fun. I don't know, I don't want to say don't take things seriously, because I don't take things seriously. I'm like, who cares? It's not the end of the world. If you don't get something you don't want, there's something else. You don't always get one thing. There's like a million things you can get, and they're all out there. You just need to get yourself noticed, and being that big bubbly person, trust me, you'll get noticed. People will always notice the loud and annoying person than the wee quiet person. It's worked for me, so.
I can see that fire in the belly you were talking about.
Absolutely, do you know, and I can't really top that other than, you know, you've got this, every one of you have got this, you're amazing, you're absolutely more than capable, and, you know, go for it. As Lucy says, you know, be loud, be proud, sell yourself, and anyone will be lucky to have you.
What an incredible note to end on. All right. Well, can we say a really big thank you to our wonderful panel of speakers? Some great sound bites there I'm going to take forward. And I don't know if the camera can see me from where I'm sat, but this is the end of our live stream online. So a huge thank you if you have been watching it online. We hope that you enjoyed it and found it really informative and rewarding. And please do reach out and get in touch if you have any questions. And goodbye to you if you're watching online.